Multi-lanes of freeway have come to a halt under a smog alert and 95 degrees heat. The KTMS traffic report is accurate. She's a witness. Her air conditioner is laboring. Other drivers turn their motors off. Windows are rolled down. Getting to know your neighbors on the freeway. Nobody smiles. Burning and choking sensations, gridlock, smog and heat. This is the entrance to hell, the one Dante never thought of. Fury plus the need for patience stiffen her body into a yogic pose that could turn into rigor mortis. At last, movement up ahead, start the motor, get going, roll up the windows, start the air conditioner, insert the talking heads, forget about the faces left and right, regain control of your ivory tower on wheels. Family and friends sit in chairs from the last century. Stone floors covered by Persian carpets. Portraits of ancestors look out from the invented past, when no one killed, but everyone hunted. She felt stabbed by an impulse to interrupt the polite exchange. She wanted smaller museums and larger shelters, but she couldn't say it out loud. Oh, and this is for the Wilcox property. Turgid red paint marks the trees for slaughter on the Wilcox property. Developer's disease has struck. Along the path, one live oak after another is doomed. For a driveway, for delivery trucks, the trees are helpless. And here's, well, perhaps I have time for two more. I'd like to do this one. Observing Ted Turner from across the room, moving in closer, next in line to shake his hands. But she stepped away. I only fear nuclear war and the wrath of women, he'd said. The man's good looks, his fitness, the focus in his eyes, his boyish enthusiasm for global disarmament, the fact that he had flown his own plane to the banquet, all this endeared him to her. But how did he incur the wrath of women? And here's, this is for the dogs of the homeless. Right, yeah. The animal looked very tired by Joe's feet. He had his eyes closed and she wished hers were. Is that part pit, she asked. Oh no, Joe answered. He's pure pit. That's a pure put bull there. Too bad they have such a bad reputation, she said. Yeah, he agreed. But they're bad when they're mad. Her hair was standing on end and she was careful not to move much. She kept her eyes lowered, never looked at the dog again. She hoped he would not smell her bad conscience as she stood there talking to his best friend. That's a nice leash, she commented, appraising the relative strength of the leather, if the dog ever turned, or Joe, for that matter. Thank you, Dad.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you for letting me read this.
Oh, it's a pleasure, really. We enjoy it.
It's a pleasure to be with Joseppi and Randy, really.
Isn't it nice?
Yes, and you, Familia.
Well, I just love doing this.
I know.
mean, it's wonderful to be able to talk with people and let the people of Santa Barbara get to know their neighbors. It's really nice.
Yes, it is a wonderful place to try and do that in.
Mm-hmm.
And you have made a kind of really experimental place here. I mean, everything here, as I understand it, has nothing to do with money.
That's right.
And I mean, that's what Baudelaire's was all about, really,
yes.
You know. And it makes it possible for me to just sit up here and stumble and...
Well, just be yourself. We all stumble sometimes, so we're just who we are here. Feels good.
There's a certain pleasure in stumbling, I find.
Yes. I want to mention, well, I want you to mention where you're going to be, where people can come and see you play music. I know you're going to be at a very special fundraiser at the Red Lion Inn because I read it in the paper. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning here.
Okay.
I was born at a very early age. No, I'm just kidding. I think I'm going to be at Joseppi's Saturday night.
All right.
This is one of the good things about working with Joe. But on October 1st, we're performing at the Red Lion Inn for Christmas Unity. It's a large concert to benefit the Council of Christmas Cheer, Christmas Unity. And if you haven't been down to the Victoria Street Theater to take a tour of the store, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Sometime in November, it looks like we're going to do a local band with Kenny Loggins, some people like that down at the Ventura Theater. I'll know more about that later, so maybe I can.
Sure,
you'll
just let me
find
know.
out about that more.
Yeah.
But that's you know, it's not really that big a deal, these benefits, because at the very least we should be feeding people.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like somebody's coming out and going, "Wah," you know, like we're doing a benefit. You know, we should be doing this all the time.
Yes.
I mean, there's many charities and all that stuff, but I mean, Council of Christmas Cheer buys like canned food and gives it to, you know, like here. They don't put money to pay salaries and stuff, you know. They give food.
And it happens right here in our...
Yeah, it's right down at the Victoria Street Theater. And they're wonderful people. But I mean, so it's not that big a deal. There's a lot of issues, you know, you guys were talking about issues. There's a lot of issues that would be a big deal to address, you know. But this is something that we're going to just kind of like pull together, I think, is the musicians in town, you know, and have a best of local talent with, you know, Kenny and some other people coming and sitting in with us and stuff like that. And
sounds like fun.
It's going to be a great thing. But as far as the wrist rockets playing and stuff, I pretty much, City Broiler has some stuff going on where you can play live, but Joseppi's is the happening place, you know. It's really the only place to go and just let your pants fall down or up. I mean, whatever happens goes, you know.
Right, and that's fun for
and it's,
musicians to have a place where
it's
they
incredible.
can really be free to do what they want. Just please themselves, and that just naturally pleases everybody else. It's good. Yeah, and I know you have a new child, I believe I heard. Probably isn't new anymore since I've seen you, but you have two now.
I have, Joseppi's is not only breeded fine musicians, a breeding ground for fine musicians, and it also was the breeding ground for my marriage to my wonderful wife, Cheryl. And we have two wonderful children, my daughter, Tiana, who was 4 in August. Hi, Tiana. And my son, who's 11 months old, Nicholas Joseppi.
All right.
Hi, Nico.
All right, that's great.
And one other thing I want to mention while I'm thinking about it is that in conjunction with the Santa Barbara International Jazz Festival, I'm holding Joseppi's first annual Lower State Street International Jazz Festival.
All right. And when?
And it will be advertised. It definitely will be advertised. Oh, Randy wants to play now. Look, he's... the 5th, 6th, and 7th, I have about 7 or 8 different jazz groups lined up for 3 days. There'll be about 4 or 5 jazz groups lined up on Saturday the 7th, beginning at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it should be a great day. There's jazz going on all over town, free jazz in De La Guerra Plaza, as well as probably most people know, at the Arlington and the County Bowl. It's going to be a fantastic weekend.
All right, now this is November?
October 5th,
October,
6th,
that's
and
coming up
7th.
real
Yeah,
quick.
just in about 2.5 weeks.
All right. And of course, it's real different to sit back in the Arlington because there's a lot of separation between you and the musicians, but at Joseppi's, you're right there with them. And you can see the whites of their eyes, so to speak, and really be in the middle of it happening, so that's exciting. Good.
What I especially like that Joseppi is doing, and I really never succeeded in doing that, and that is to bring people in the afternoons. Because I found in Santa Barbara, people really try to go to the beach whenever possible. But somehow this man is getting people to come in the daytime, and I applaud you for
Claire,
it.
if you pay people $5 to come in, anybody will come in.
You even had a play at Joseppi's.
Oh.
Yes, yes. I wish I had seen
That was really a highlight. It
Yes.
was definitely a highlight, which Randy Tico was.
Right, amazing.
Major
Just
part of.
amazing. You know, I didn't get in the door. I was a little late. It was on a Monday night after the show, and I came down and the door was locked, and I couldn't get in the door to see the play. You know, it was
Oh,
just
really?
after it.
Yeah.
Remember, it began,
Uh-huh.
but you used every single bit of space, so
Right.
you couldn't have people coming in and out because the play was happening everywhere. But I was bitterly disappointed I didn't get in. So you're going to have to do it again sometime.
Definitely want to do another play.
Yeah, that was really great.
Definitely.
I noticed another thing you said before also was that you learned to love musicians, and so do I love musicians, and it has, for me, it has to do with the fact that a musician has so much else on his mind than me. I mean, sort of like a musician is never bored. You know, they always take their instrument and go somewhere and blow it or whatever they do. It's very nice, and then in between. Musicians are so patient with others. They're very interesting about it. It's almost like being understood more than being understood, you know, because you guys, you're like dancers. Some of you play 6 to 8 hours a day. It's unbelievably remarkable, you know, and then sort of too blown out to be nagging and complaining much. It's kind of just, you've had your greatness.
I appreciate musicians a lot too, and some years ago I rented rooms in my house.
I remember.
And I always had musicians living in my house. And I remember John Hawk, I don't know if you know John, but John made his first guitars in my garage.
Really?
That was his workshop, and he was a wonderful roommate. And of course the pluses were that some nights late at night I'd hear him start to play his acoustic guitar, which I don't think he played very often. And I remember one birthday I had where he played. I always liked it. I never said a word to him about it, but I always felt that was his birthday present to me. He played for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, very late into the night. And I felt that it was for my birthday. Whether he even knew it was my birthday, I don't know, but it was wonderful. And I've had lots of different kinds of musicians that I had in my house, and they were all wonderful. I think their patience comes from, they have to be patient with themselves, because I think sometimes, maybe I don't know this process, but it seems like music sometimes takes a long time to be complete, and it's different, I think, than writing. You put it down.
Yeah, right.
I've never been able to imagine how their brains work, especially musicians that hear all these different instruments. It's just a wonder to me how that can happen. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. It took me ages to learn to listen to the different instruments. I finally, I had no background in rock and roll at all. I finally could hear the bass all by itself in the midst of all the, and so I realized the safety of the bass, you know, the bass, and the drum, and then I used to be able to tell I used to be pretty good on guitars and things like that. But a musician must have it always, like an orchestra in his head all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, they all hear it a little differently. Because
I'd like to have a cup of that, you know? I really would.
If you find it, let me know, will you?
I have no talent for music. None.
But your talent is for writing.
I know, but I'd rather be a musician.
Yeah, well, I would too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Practice. That's it. That's why they are so
Yeah.
patient. Yeah.
And don't you think it's true that with musicians, their instruments are, if not a part of them, like they always say that if you are involved with a musician, that you always have to know that their guitar, their piano, or whatever it is really first in their heart. And no? I mean, it's like, isn't it a part of you that you just can't quite have too far away from you?
Well, yes.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
if there's
it
a
is.
fire, Randy, and there is.
It's come down a couple of times where it's either the guitar or you know, but
Yeah.
I hate to advertise that, and I just did. It's just great. But
Yeah.
no, it's a blessing, and just from my own personal experience, if I play something that's unbelievably wonderful, it's not me.
Yeah.
It's not Randy. It's not, you know.
Yeah.
It's something else channeling through.
Right.
You know? And That's what music does to me. Every cell in my body jiggles. It just wiggles around when I hear something really good.
But you have to put yourself in a place to be ready for that to come through. And as you say, you've practiced long enough, so now you can kind of get out of the way and it'll come, and it's great. So thank you for practicing so hard all these years.
You're welcome.
Really. And one of the things you do that we haven't mentioned tonight is that you are the, I don't know if this is the right title, the poetry editor on The Independent?
Oh, that is the right title. It is the favorite title of my life, actually, to be a poetry editor. How lofty. I'm extremely thrilled with being poetry editor at The Independent, and I think, once again, Marion Partridge allows me a certain leeway. I don't think there are many weeklies in this country that have poetry in them, so we're breaking ground. And actually, I am now, I think this week there is a poem in Spanish. I'm not,
oh, great.
And I hope to have one, to have some poems in Spanish just without translations. And so that's very nice. I'm curious if anyone will write and say, hey, I couldn't understand that. Would you mind telling me what that meant? And we have a translation available, you know, but some part of me feels that we need to know Spanish as well as the Spaniards know Spanish.
Yes.
You know, it has to be reciprocal. I mean, I feel this town is already a bilingual town. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's not Russian and it's not French or Greek or even Turkish, but it's Spanish. And fortunately, my children are bilingual, and my grandbaby will also be bilingual. So
that's great.
I love Santa Barbara because there is a Latin sound, you know. I would love to hear a touch more of Randy Cobb and Joseppi.
I would too. Maybe they would. I know that Joseppi's gotten his accordion out of the way, but it sure would be. Isn't this a first? Is this or is this not a first with you two?
This is about a 1 million.
Oh, really?
But, I mean, we do this kind of stuff at his club all the time,
good.
like if we're loitering on the street somewhere, but never on TV, so this would be a first. Let's do that shuffle thing.
Oh, I thought maybe you'd want to do Freedom Jazz Dance or something.
Well, that would be fine, as long as you can play the head.
Well, we could try something, I guess. Oops. I have a wire attached to me here.
Wire.
Well, while they're getting set up, I want to ask you one more thing about this issue of the poetry. If we just might have some aspiring poets out there in our audience, and maybe we can just give them a little nudge to send you some poems.
Oh, by all means do, and tell them also, I mean, sometimes there is no space in the paper. We don't always have a space every week, but that's what I feed off of, is poetry I've never seen before. So.
And don't you have a contest every year?
We did one last year, and we're talking about another one now, just talking about it. Contests are
A lot of
very
work.
difficult.
A lot of work, I know.
Less rewarding than might think, but
Yeah.
but it's a good thing to do, and I'll try to find enough energy. Last time we had 150 poems and 10 judges, so
Wow.
this time I think we'll try something simpler. Yeah.
Okay, so if we do have some aspiring poets out there, they can send their poems to Claire Rabe at The Independent.
Yes, yes.
And we're probably going to run out of time while they're playing music, so would you lift your book and let us see the cover? And I know it's available at the Earthling, I know.
Yes, and at Chaucer's and at Dutton's in L.A. I mean, it's really going, Capra Press is the publisher, and it's going all over the country, and I think I now have an agent for the mass market, so
All right,
let's wish this book luck.
congratulations. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you.
And you're going to have to come back again.
I'd love to.
Do some more poetry.
I'd love to. I won't try to promote myself so much.
Thanks. Okay, here they are. Randy Cobb and Joseppi.
I want to say one thing about this book. I don't have time to read like mountains and mountains of literature, but I read your book over the weekend, and it's the most beautiful book I've ever read in my life. Oh. Everybody puts two nickels together and goes and buys it because it's fantastic. It really is.
All right.
Whoa.
You want to play another one? Or finished, or want to do another one? I'll tell you what, why don't I tell our audience goodbye, thank everybody, and then you can play us out. How's that? Does that sound good?
We can play that one back.
Okay, that sounds good. I just hope that the audience out there has had as much fun tonight as we have. I know we've all had a good time here together. So thanks for tuning in. Remember that this show will repeat again on Saturday at 4 o'clock. So if you liked it, tell somebody about it and let them see if they like us too. You've been watching Outrageous Women, and I want to thank our wonderful crew. Without them, this wouldn't happen. And thank you for tuning in. We hope that you'll tune in again next week. And don't forget our dear Mother Earth, the most outrageous woman of them all. See you soon.
Heal the Planet is the theme for this year's Peace Walk and Peace Fest on Saturday, October 21st. Join the walk starting at 9:30 in Alameda Park and parade down State and Memphis Street.
Strike. Thousands of students in Santa Maria may face high school classes without teachers after a vote late this afternoon. Teachers aren't on the picket line.
Hiatus, the musical celebration has been revived thanks to a well-connected promoter and a $30,000 grant from the city. Every night this week you can catch free concerts like these at clubs all over town. Over the weekend, world-famous greats like jazz king Stan Getz, David Benoit, and Latin salsa machine Pancho Sanchez will perform at the Arlington Theater and the County Bowl. Tickets can be purchased at the box office.
We'll see you tomorrow night right after the baseball game. Good night.
Towards a new life. The people have been camped around the West German embassy in Berlin. The situation is different, though, back in East Germany, and now for the first time the United States is involved. These police are dragging off a family seeking refuge at the U.S. Embassy. They missed the Freedom Train. The police blocked the family and several others from escaping through this route.
There's a story there. One of the state's best running backs will be profiled during Mitch's Sportscast, and so will the Giants' Pacific Sock Exchange in their playoff opener next.
You've destroyed your credibility, and you get what you deserve. And there have been plenty of examples of people who overpromise or promise the wrong thing. People pick up the product, and you know what? They stop using the product. They get a great tune in, they get a big tune out. And by the way, I think it goes back to what Phil's saying. The public out there is not stupid. We keep talking about them as if we have to protect them from themselves. If we do the wrong thing, they're going to reject us. And there are more examples of people, of the public, rejecting us than accepting us.
Right. Fred, your interest appears to go to decorum and to form and to style. I don't think, altogether, a lot of attention paid to content. You will not be upset if I remind this audience that you are responsible for what I think is a very well-drawn, well-constructed, well-researched book titled Minnesota Rag, which celebrated, you did this as an author.
Celebrated the First Amendment.
You celebrated the legitimation of this scurrilous periodical in Minnesota, anti-Semitic, anti-everything,
right.
anti-black, and
right.
And you're a proud American because you live in the country that allowed that periodical, that issue to exist. True?
Mr. Donahue, I got just the answer for you.
Well, I haven't asked my question.
Yes, you have. Mr. Justice Brandeis, who was influential in that opinion that was written by Chief Justice Charles Evans Hughes, said, the voice we hate has as much right to be heard as the voice we like. Also, I would remind you of what Justice Potter Stewart said on one of our programs. To us, we who are journalists. And
does that include all of us, Fred?
Even the advocates, he said, the problem with you, Fred, and your profession, all of us, is you're all mixed up about the difference between what you have a right to do under the First Amendment, which is almost anything, and the right thing to do. And my question is the right thing to do, not whether you have a right to do it.
Well, whose opinion?
In your opinion.
And everybody in this room's opinion. That's what America's all about.
That's the whole point. Journalism is supposed to be messy, just like a democracy. It seems to me we have an awful lot of pompous people, many of whom work for, may I say, newspapers, who have little or no competition at all.
That's not true.
Looking down from a high, lofty moral stage, saying, ain't this awful? And you won't be, and I hope I won't be thought of as pompous myself to remind you that it wasn't the straight, wonderful, decorous, so-called serious journalists who blew the whistle on Iran-Contra. It was an almost broke weekly magazine in Lebanon that did this. Welcome these new programs. Maybe, though they're new sources of information, they will push the networks just a little farther. The bounds in which we now decorously operate might be expanded, and America will get more information.
Talk about looking down from on high. You need to be honest about what you're doing. This is not lofty stuff. You're pandering to lowest and...
You're talking to real people.
We're talking about American people.
What are you doing?
Mr. Donahue?
Let me take Fred's position. What are you doing with
Let me respond.
I want to be as good a moderator as some of you are. Mr. Shales.
I'll tell you how good this competition is for the networks. All three, to the best of my knowledge, are now toying with the idea of putting tabloid shows on themselves.
Yeah. Good.
Bad news drives out good, Phil. Are you going to be so defensive of this when it's good dominant?
Drives out, Tom, we have a 22-minute evening newscast on CBS.
You want to see Dan Rather in a dress, Phil?
Drives out.
It's not Dan Rather they're talking about doing that with. They're adding. It's replacing entertainment.
You know what?
Mr. Rivera. Mr. Rivera.
For years on television, there was an absolute monopoly on national news. It was controlled by the three networks, all of which are located on the same street in the same city. They reflected philosophy drawn from a narrow slice of American society. What these programs have done is democratize real life. It's wilder now. It's more diverse. It's more exciting now. Some of it is excessive, but other, as Phil correctly points out, are dealing with topics that would not otherwise have been covered. The networks didn't cover Satanism. A dozen people had their bodies exhumed today. That's a real story, but it wasn't covered by the New York Times because it's not a nice story.
You said all the news that's nice to print.
That's the New York Times. It should be its logo.
I want to run you, because a lot of people believe that your programs have their origins, for better or worse, in 60 Minutes, which really broke the mold. It is.
And Joe Pine.
And who is Joe Pine?
Joe Pine was the first one. Joe Pine was the great Joe Pine. He was terrific.
What did he do?
I thought Mike Wallace was the first.
He was like Peralta, he was like all these guys.
He would say to his guests, I'd like to put a postage stamp on your nose and mail you to a forest fire.
That's just what it...
We'll be back in a moment. I watched it. It was wonderful.
Well,
we need more of this.
Morton Downey learned from that.
I knew Joe Pine.
Downey never saw Joe Pine in his life.
Joe Pine was a gimmick. I knew Joe Pine very well. Hold it. Joe Pine would scream and yell. He had a chiropractor on who was a friend of mine. I knew Joe very well.
Yeah,
and he'd scream and yell. As soon as the commercial come up, he said, we're going to go have lunch.
He's democratizing television, Larry. He was democratizing television.
I was talking about 60 Minutes. I want to run you, just to see if this is the seed bed for all of this. This is a program 2 years ago. Somebody in your organization told me it's the highest rated program you had that year. I know you don't care about ratings, Mr. Hewitt.
I care a lot about Rabe. I have no idea what the highest
Well, you're about to see. Watch this program. It's just the opening billboard, and I think it'll give us some perspective on where you've been and where you're going. Sure. Please, could we have the 60-minute tape? As the man says, look at the...
These women are among 50 who accused a small-town physician of raping them during gynecological examinations.
And then he says, would you like to help guide it in? And I said, no.